Hi, welcome to the immune system, or how we fight off disease. What is the immune system, you might ask? If you haven't had biology since high school, you might not really understand it. The immune system protects your body from harmful substances. It, uh, these include germs, cell changes that could make you ill, and it's made up of various organs, cells, and proteins. If it stops working, you cannot heal yourself. And when it does stop working, it can be pretty dangerous for children who don't have an immune system or whose immune system is compromised because of chemotherapy or organ rejection from transplants. What does the immune system do? Well, it prevents or limits infection. Another thing that it does really, really well is distinguishes self from non-self. What do I mean by self from non-self? The tissues and cells and organs in your body are recognized as self. The body doesn't attempt to fight them off. However, if you need an organ transplant, like a heart transplant, a liver transplant, a kidney, even a cornea transplant in the eye, the immune system will recognize that as foreign and attempt to fight it off. And that's why you need to have anti-rejection drugs to prevent that. So as you can see, self from non-self is very important. It can also distinguish between healthy and unhealthy cells, such as cancer cells, which are unhealthy, from normal cells, which are healthy. Okay. The immune system is comprised of a variety of cells within a variety of tissues. But they all have one thing in common. They come from precursors in the bone marrow, and they develop into mature cells through a series of changes in different parts of the body. And you can find a lot more information on this if you go to nih.gov. Dr. Fauci, whom you may have heard of, is actually the director of the Allergies and Infectious Disease division of NIH, and he's on TV a lot because of COVID. The tasks of the immune system are to fight disease-causing germs or pathogens like bacteria, viruses, parasites, or even fungi, and to remove them from the body. Another task is to recognize and neutralize harmful substances from the environment. And it tries to fight disease-causing changes in the body, such as cancer cells. One theory is about cancer is that cancer cells are continually arising in the body, but because the immune system is vigilant against these cancer cells, it devours them, it destroys them, but sometimes it misses some, and that's when a tumor can develop. Your skin is the largest organ in the body, and it's your first line of defense against microbes, which is why it's so important if you get a cut, you need to wash it out and put some Neosporin or bacitracin or some other antibiotic cream on it. Skin cells produce and secrete important antimicrobial proteins, which again help this barrier. And immune cells can be found in specific layers of the skin, and you see a graphic here of the various layers of the skin with the blood vessels. And again, this came from NIH. Where are these made, these precursors? They're made in the bone marrow, and if you look over here, you can see we have spongy bone right here. And it's that kind of blotchy looking end of the long bone. This part is the long bone right here. And it's the spongy bone where bone marrow, the spongy bone contains the bone marrow, and this is where your precursor cells are made. And these cells are B cells, T cells, natural killer cells. These are all lymphocytes, and they're made in the bone marrow, and they circulate through in the blood. The cells that come from precursors in the bone marrow include your white blood cells, or your leukocytes, and these are neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, mast cells, monocytes, dendritic cells, and macrophages, and I have pictures of those later on in the PowerPoint. Your lymphocytes are part of both types, both responses. The immune response has two responses, innate and activated, and all of these cells work together. The lymphatic system is an integral part of the immune system, and this is a network of vessels and tissues which circulate lymph fluid throughout the entire body. And it's composed of lymph, which is the fluid, lymphoid organs, such as the spleen, and lymph nodes, which are located under the armpits and in the groin, among other places. And immune cells here sample information brought in from the body. The lymphatic system is a conduit, and it allows for both travel and communication between tissues in the bloodstream. And immune cells are carried through the lymphatic system and converge in the lymph nodes, which are found throughout the body. And again, you can find more information on the link I have posted here, which is part of NIH. Another part of the immune system which acts as a barrier is mucosal tissue. These are surfaces which are primary entry points or prime entry points for pathogens, and they're special immune hubs located in this mucosal lining, which secretes mucus, in the intestine, respiratory tract, and gut. And you can see in the picture, it's in there. There's some mucosa in the lining of the mouth, in the bronchi, in the gut, and you can see all of these here. And it's not too clear, but here's the lining of the mouth. Some in the intestines, and in the stomach. Well, the first response of the immune system is the nonspecific immunity, or the innate response. This occurs immediately when your immune system or your body recognizes something as a non-self invader, like a virus or a bacteria. It contains receptors that can broadly recognize a class of pathogens, such as viruses in general, bacteria in general, fungi, or even non-infectious problems. They don't recognize a specific strain of virus, such as COVID-19, or the bacteria that causes tetanus, for example, or Lyme disease. The adaptive response comes after the initial response, or the innate response, and this is very, very specific. So it relies on coordination and expansion among specific immune cells in the adaptive response. And this also leads to immune memory, which is the reason you generally don't get a viral infection caused by the exact same virus more than once. So what is adaptive immunity? Well, it reacts to a very specific antigen. What is an antigen? Anything foreign that attacks the body. Excuse me. The adaptive immune cells are B cells and T cells, and these bear unique receptors. BCRs for B cell receptors and TCRs for T cell receptors. T cells happen to be named because they mature in the thymus. BCRs are named because they mature in the bone marrow. So each receptor recognizes specific antigen, and if you've been following some of the news with COVID and the different variants of COVID, the receptor, the spike protein, generally binds to either the B cell or the T cell antigen, or B cell or T cell receptor, and the vaccine that has been developed is supposed to prevent that, so that the vaccine can't get into the cells. Antigens are derived, as I said, again, from a variety of sources. They include pathogens, even host cells, and from what a lot of us suffer for, allergens like pollen. Antigens are processed by the innate immune cells, and then, which are first activated, in the innate response, and then presented to the B cells and T cells in the lymph nodes. One of the features of the adaptive immune response is after a B cell or a T cell is activated, they begin to multiply very, very rapidly, making millions of copies of themselves. And these go about the body fighting the infection. As the infection or the problem resolves, the cells stop dividing, and some of them are retained in the body as memory cells, and they're usually memory B cells. The next time this same pathogen enters the body, there are these memory cells which are primed to recognize this antigen and destroy it immediately, which explains why once you get a viral disease like the measles, you won't get it again. And this gives you a graphic showing you the difference between the innate, which is on the left, and the adaptive response, which is on the right. And where they overlap here is the relationship between the innate responses which have discovered that there's a pathogen in the body. They react by multiplying T cells and natural killer cells, which then make antibodies and B cells and T cells, which make clones. So you've got antibodies then against a specific antigen, and then you've got the memory cells which retain memory to that particular antigen. And here you see a phagocyte on the very right-hand side. There's a phagocyte engulfing a bacterium, brings it in to be digested in a lysosome, versus a T lymphocyte actually making an antibody which then attacks the intact phagocyte, preventing the bacterium or killing the bacterium inside it. That's right. Some of the cells that you're going to come in contact with in the immune response are neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, mast cells, monocytes, macrophages, and dendritic cells, and these all have the ability to immediately and broadly respond to infection, and it can lead to inflammation. Here you see neutrophils on the furthest left, eosinophils in the middle, and basophils on the right. And finally, the rest of the immune cells, mast cells, natural killer cells, monocytes, macrophages, and the neutrophils, which are the only multinucleated ones. And that's it.